I want to share with you the consistency technique which helped me to quit my 9 to 5 a couple of years ago and start making money online by selling other people's products and services. This lets me make more money than I made in my corporate 9 to 5 role. It lets me do that remotely from pretty much anywhere in the world, and it lets me do that more or less on my own schedule. In short, I have taken back control over my own life and I'm living life on my terms. I am so grateful for this lifestyle. But one of the ways that I was able to achieve that and excel in the role of online closing was by mastering consistency. And I think that now is a relevant time to talk about this because we're approaching the end of the year and a lot of people are starting to set New Year resolutions. A lot of these are famously go unresolved. That is to say that people setting these New Year's resolutions so often come around to not actually stick to them. And I believe the reason for this is basically they are not being consistent enough in those goals, meaning that it's very hard to achieve consistency towards them. So very common for people to set a fitness related New Year's resolution. It'll be something like, I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week from the 1st of January. And what will usually happen is within a few months, they will have fallen off that train and they are no longer going to the gym any times a week since the 1st of January. Unfortunately, this happens all the time. And I believe the reason is basically in the specificity of what the actual goal is and potentially a misunderstanding in what consistency actually means. So I think it all starts at the beginning, right? It starts with that goal of I'm going to go to the gym 3 times this week. I have been exercising regularly for a very long time, probably since I was about 14 or 15. One could argue even a little bit before that as well, but that was when I got really serious about it. And what I learnt very early on was you want to minimize the number of variables that you're changing at any one time and be very consistent in the inputs that you're making towards that goal. So rather than saying, I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week from the 1st of January, I would suggest something like an actual plan where you know exactly what exercises you're going to be doing on each day of the week between the 1st of January and the rest of time, presumably, depending on what your resolution is. So I would get, this isn't a specific workout plan, but I would be super specific with that. I would say I'm going to do upper body Monday, lower body Tuesday, take a rest on Wednesday, and then I'm going to do upper body on Thursday and lower body again on Friday. That first day is going to be I'm going to start with the bench press. I'm going to go on to the pull-ups. Then I'm going to do weighted dumbbell press, and then I'm going to do dumbbell rows. And I'm going to be aiming for 10 to 12 sets, 3 sets, 10 to 12 reps in each set. And every week in at least one of those sets, I'm going to try and increase either the number of reps or the amount of weight. So again, that is very specific. That's not specific to you. I wouldn't necessarily recommend you go out and try that, but I would literally write this down and then I would go and attack that specific plan and try and make progress on that every single week. At a certain point, you will eventually reach a plateau, and that is when you can start changing some of those variables. But you can really do that by adjusting the weight and adjusting the number of reps that you're going for. You can increase the intensity or reduce the intensity. So I'm being very specific to exercise there, but this is the level of specificity that you need, in my belief, in order to actually stay consistent. Because within that broader goal of I'm going to start going to the gym every week, 3 times a week between from the 1st of January, there's a lot of micro goals within that you can use to keep yourself true to that vision of exercising more and getting fitter. And what this also means is you'll get to the goal of fitness in a particular realm much quicker because you're figuring out what works much faster. You're giving it a fair chance. If you're just strolling into the gym a couple of days a week and sort of wandering around and trying out different stuff at random, you don't really know what's working, what's not working. And sure, that's fine in the beginning when you want to just find your feet and just figure out what you like and figure out what feels good and what your body responds to. But if you want to speed up your success, you need to be being consistent. You need to be getting into that consistency as soon as possible. And we can apply, and I do apply, this exact same mentality to business and to making money. I'm not some sort of productivity guru, just telling you what worked for me and how I got there. So I got there from being into exercise from a young age and realizing that I only made progress when I had a very specific set of variables that I wasn't changing very much, as I just explained with the workout plans. So how I sort of transposed this into business and into work was by setting similar numbers with the inputs that I had to achieve every single day. And you can use this at two distinct levels that I'll talk about now. The first is getting into a closing role, and then the second is actually exiting that closing role effectively. So getting into a closing role, you can apply this to, for example, the outreach that you might conduct to try and get a remote closing gig. Okay, I want to reach out to this many influencers a day, and every single day I'm going to go back and reach back to the ones I reached 2 days ago, and each of them is going to get at least 8 touch points, and this is what I'm going to say in those touch points, but I'm going to customize those messages to the individual influencer that I'm reaching. Okay, again, I'm making that up on the spot, but I think you realize the level of specificity that we're going for there. That is what I believe will get you to your goals quicker. When it comes to actually executing on these roles, I've literally got this, right, written out with pen and paper first time. I think it's the easiest link between the mind and getting it out of the mind. It's better than typing. I've got written down specifically the day-to-day of, first of all, the particular goal that I want to achieve for that client, right? How much money I want to make with that client that I'm estimating is possible. And then I've got exactly how I'm going to do it, okay? Just randomly, for example, okay, I've already shown you on this channel my priority chart, right? This is the deals that are the closest to closing, the lowest hanging fruit. That's my first thing in the day. So I'm going to do the priority funnel for this client first. Then if you've got inbounds, right, I'm doing a lot of DM closing at the moment. I'm going to check my inbox, okay? And then I'm going to go into the CRM and I'm going to follow through the to-do list of all of the follow-ups that I've got to do for that day. And then I'm going to go around and check the email inbox. And then I'm going to go around and check the DM inbox again, etc. Right? You get the point. These are the inputs that we're going to need to be putting in every single day. And notoriously in sales, it's particularly if you're dealing with inbound leads, okay, there's a lot of variables in there that you can't necessarily control. But we want to be making sure then that we are doubling down on the inputs that we can control. And so the way we do that is we make a list of them all and we make sure that we're executing on those every single day. That is how you build consistency, and that is how you win over time, because you're keeping these variables as consistent as possible. That then means when you want to start optimizing that system, it's way easier to see what's actually working by changing things around a bit. So I would recommend, even in the beginning, okay, before you actually know necessarily what's going to work, just choose any set, right? Choose any consistent routine that you can get into and just start executing on that before you start trying to change variables, because it's hard to see if something's working or not until you've given it a fair chance of consistency, essentially. So, in summary, most people fail at their New Year's health, fitness, whatever resolutions because they don't set up specific inputs that they have to achieve in order to remain consistent to that goal. You can apply that exact same mentality by literally writing down the day-to-day inputs and their order of importance for both getting into remote sales and closing and then executing the job once you get into it. This is the way that I have found to remain consistent and achieve success in both of those realms that we just spoke about. But pretty sure you could apply this to pretty much anything that you wanted to improve or get good at. Hope you found that interesting. As I say, I'm not trying to be some sort of productivity guru, but this is something that I realized early on. I think it's something that's given me a big edge in getting into this world, right? Making money online, remotely, from wherever I want to be and living life on my terms. Have a great evening. I want the same for you. Plenty more to come. Catch you in the next one.